President Trump's daughter Ivanka is back on the stand after a short break in court. She's been calm and soft-spoken during her testimony today as the state's final witness in the civil fraud trial against her father, two brothers, and the family company. President Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump all took the stand already, trying to distance themselves from the company's finances.
Specific details going that far back. Even when shown some emails, she said, I don't remember this email other than you showing it to me now. But personal financial statements, but those were not something that I was privy to, and it was not something that I was involved in. So very clear from Ivanka on the stand just a few moments ago. It was interesting because it's a bit of a theme of what we've seen from Ivanka on the stand today, which is that when she's asked about things from 2011, 2012, she says she really doesn't recall that she was not responsible, involved in, or privy to the financial statements at the heart of the case here, much like her brothers did. Significantly, Diane, they have sort of moved now, just now, into the financial statements of her father and the company, the ones that are at the heart of the case, the ones that the judge has now ruled were fraudulent. And Ivanka has done on the stand what her brothers did on the stand, which is to distance herself from those statements. And just to give you her exact words here, she said, "I would assume my father had personal..."
Okay, so the FBI just raided Trump Tower in Florida. Yeah, you heard that right. And no, I'm not talking about some random building that happens to have Trump's name on it. I'm talking about a luxury condo inside an actual Trump branded property owned by Russian businessmen. And it gets worse because this raid is happening at the exact same time that old questions about Ivanka Trump's international business deals are blowing up all over again. Now look, before we go any further, let me just say this. The timing here, it's insane. Like, are you kidding me? The FBI kicks down doors at a Trump Tower condo connected to Russians, and suddenly everyone's talking about Ivanka's shady overseas deals from years ago? Come on, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. So here's what went down. Thursday morning, Sunny Isles, Florida. That's where one of these Trump Tower properties sits, right on the beach, all shiny and expensive looking. The FBI shows up. They raid Unit 4102. And guess who owns it? Two Russian businessmen, Oleg Patulia and Agunda Makeva. Now, these aren't just random people who happen to live in a Trump building. They're connected to some shell company called MIC USA LLC, which, yeah, sounds totally legit, right? And apparently this company's been involved in some sketchy financial stuff, lawsuits, suspicious transactions, the kind of thing that makes the FBI go, yeah, we need to see what's in that condo. But here's where it gets really wild, because this raid isn't happening in a vacuum. At the same time, literally right now, the FBI is taking another look at Ivanka Trump's old business deals, specifically deals she made with foreign companies and governments when her dad was president. We're talking about projects in places like Vancouver, Panama, and other international hotspots. And the question everyone's asking is this: did Ivanka's deals help foreign actors, including Russians, hide money? Did they use Trump properties to launder cash? And did the Trump family know about it? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, here we go again. Another Russia story. And yeah, I get it. We've been down this road before. But listen, this isn't just some conspiracy theory floating around on Twitter. This is the FBI conducting raids, opening investigations, and the fact that it's all happening now with Trump in his second term, that tells you something, doesn't it? Because here's the thing. Trump's not some outsider anymore. He's not the underdog fighting the establishment. He's the president, again. And his family, they're still tied to all these businesses, all these international deals, all these properties with his name on them. And now the FBI is saying, hey, maybe we should take a closer look at how some of these deals went down. And let me tell you, the internet is going absolutely crazy over this. Hashtags are trending everywhere. People are posting about it on Truth Social, which, yeah, is Trump's own platform. They're talking about it on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. And the reactions, they're all over the place. The Trump supporters are calling it a witch hunt. They're saying the FBI is trying to take him down because they hate him. And Trump critics, they're saying this is proof that the Trump family has been dirty all along. But you know what? It doesn't matter what side you're on, because the facts are the facts. The FBI raided a Trump Tower condo owned by Russians. Ivanka's old deals are under investigation. And all of this is happening while Trump is sitting in the Oval Office. So what does this mean? Well, that's what we're about to break down. Because this story, it's not just about one raid or one investigation. It's about a pattern. A pattern of Trump properties being used by sketchy foreign actors. A pattern of Ivanka making deals that raise serious questions. And a pattern of the Trump family acting like none of this matters. And here's the kicker. This could have real consequences. Not just for Trump's reputation, which, let's be honest, he doesn't seem to care about anyway, but for his presidency, for his family, and maybe, just maybe, for whether anyone in the Trump organization ends up facing criminal charges. Because, let's be real here, when the FBI raids a property with your name on it, when they're investigating your daughter's international deals, when social media is exploding with hashtags about your family's alleged crimes, that's not a good look. That's not fake news. That's not a witch hunt. That's the federal government saying we think something illegal might have happened here, and we're going to find out. And the Trump family can't just wave this away. They can't just call it political persecution and hope it goes away, because the evidence is piling up. The questions keep getting louder, and the American people, whether they love Trump or hate him, deserve answers. So stick around, because we're about to dive deep into this mess. We're going to talk about what the FBI found, what Ivanka's deals were really about, and why this whole thing matters way more than you think. This is wild, people. Let's get into it. All right, so let's back up for a second, because if you're just hearing about this now, you might be confused. Like, why is the FBI raiding a Trump Tower condo? Why does it matter that Russians own it? And what does Ivanka have to do with any of this? Okay, let me explain. And I'm going to try to keep this simple, because trust me, it gets complicated fast. So, first things first, Trump Tower in Sunny Isles, Florida. This isn't just some random apartment building. It's a luxury property. Like, we're talking about condos that cost millions of dollars, and it's got Trump's name all over it. Now, here's the thing. Trump doesn't actually own most of these properties. What he does is he licenses his name. So a developer builds a fancy tower, slaps Trump on the side, and boom, instant brand recognition. Trump gets paid. The developer gets to charge more money. Everyone's happy. Except not everyone who buys these condos is legit. And that's where the problems start. Because over the years, a whole bunch of Trump properties, especially in places like Miami and New York, have been bought up by people with questionable backgrounds. We're talking about Russian oligarchs. We're talking about people connected to organized crime. We're talking about shell companies that exist only on paper. And the question that keeps coming up is this. Are these people using Trump properties to hide dirty money? Now, Trump has always said he doesn't know who buys his condos. He said he just licenses his name and walks away. But here's the problem with that. When your name is on the building, when you're promoting it, when you're making money off of it, you can't just pretend you have no idea what's going on, especially when the FBI starts asking questions. So that brings us to this raid, Unit 4102, owned by Oleg Patulia and Agunda Mekava, two Russian businessmen. And they're connected to this shell company, MICUSA LLC. Now, we don't know exactly what the FBI found yet, but what we do know is that this company has been involved in lawsuits. There have been allegations of suspicious financial activity, and the FBI clearly thought there was enough evidence to justify kicking down the door and searching the place. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because this isn't the first time Trump properties in Florida have been tied to Russians. There's been reporting on this for years. Investigative journalists have dug into who's buying these condos, and over again, they found connections to Russian money. Some of it legit, some of it not so much. In fact, let's talk about South Florida real estate for a minute, because this region, especially Miami, has become a hotspot for international buyers, and a lot of that money comes from Russia. Now, not all Russian buyers are criminals, obviously, but when you're dealing with luxury real estate, when you're dealing with shell companies, when you're dealing with cash purchases that don't require traditional financing, that raises red flags, because that's exactly how money laundering works. You take dirty money, money from crime, corruption, whatever, and you use it to buy real estate. Suddenly, that dirty money is tied to a legitimate asset. And if you ever need to sell that asset, boom, clean money. That's the whole game. And Trump properties, they're perfect for this, because they're luxury, they're prestigious, they're in prime locations, and they attract exactly the kind of international buyers who might be looking to hide their wealth. But wait, it gets better. Because while all of this is happening, while the FBI is raiding this condo, another story is blowing up. And that story is about Ivanka Trump. So let's talk about Ivanka for a minute. Because if you've been following Trump world at all, you know that Ivanka has always been positioned as the smart one, the professional one, the one who's supposed to make the Trump brand look classy and respectable. And for a while, that worked. She had her own fashion line, she wrote a book, she gave speeches, And then when her dad became president, she became a senior advisor in the White House. But here's the thing. While Ivanka was working in the White House, while she had security clearance, while she was representing the United States on the world stage, she was also still tied to the Trump organization. And the Trump organization was still doing business all over the world. Now, this raised some serious ethical questions at the time. Because how can you be a government official, someone who's supposed to put America first, while your family business is making deals with foreign governments and foreign companies? The answer is you probably can't, at least not without some major conflicts of interest. And that brings us to the deals that are under investigation now. Specifically, Ivanka's involvement in international projects. One of the big ones, a Trump Tower project in Vancouver. This was a huge luxury development, and Ivanka was heavily involved. She flew out there for the grand opening. She promoted it on social media. She was the face of the project. But here's the problem. Reporting came out years ago, actually, that raised questions about who was financing this project. Were there foreign actors involved? Were there people trying to use this deal to get access to the Trump family? And most importantly, did Ivanka know about any of this? Now, at the time, the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation. That's not a criminal investigation, at least not yet. It's an investigation into whether foreign governments or foreign actors were trying to influence the Trump family through these business deals. And according to reports, Ivanka's Vancouver deal was one of the things they were looking at. So why does this matter now? Because that investigation never really went away. It just kind of faded into the background. But now, with this raid happening in Florida, with renewed scrutiny on Trump properties and Russian connections, all of those old questions are coming back. And people are asking, did Ivanka's deals help facilitate money laundering? Did they give foreign actors a way to hide their money in Trump properties? And did the Trump family profit from all of this? Now look, we don't have all the answers yet. The FBI hasn't released a statement about what they found in that condo, and we don't know exactly what they're looking at when it comes to Ivanka's deals. But what we do know is this. The FBI doesn't raid luxury condos for no reason. They don't reopen investigations unless they think there's something there. And here's the other thing. This isn't just about one condo or one deal. This is about a pattern of Trump properties attracting sketchy buyers, a pattern of international deals that raise ethical and legal questions, and a pattern of the Trump family acting like none of this is a big deal. Because here's what Trump and his defenders will say. They'll say this is all a witch hunt. They'll say the FBI is biased. They'll say there's no proof of anything illegal. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe the FBI will investigate and find nothing. Maybe this will all blow over. But here's the problem. Even if nothing criminal happened, even if no one gets charged with a crime, the questions are still there. The connections are still there. And the fact that Trump properties keep showing up in stories about Russian money and sketchy financial dealings, that's a problem. Because perception matters, trust matters, and when you're the president of the United States, when your family is still tied to a global business empire, people are going to ask questions. And right now, those questions are louder than ever. Because think about it, we're not talking about some small-time real estate developer anymore. We're talking about the president of the United States and his daughter and his business empire. And the FBI is saying, yeah, we need to look into this. That's not normal. That's not politics as usual. That's a big freaking deal. So what happens next? Well, that's what we're about to get into. Because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The FBI is still investigating. The media is digging deeper. And the internet? Oh, the internet is having a field day with this. So let's break it all down. Let's talk about what this means for Trump, what it means for Ivanka, and what it means for anyone who's been defending the Trump family through all of this. Because trust me, this is about to get messy. Okay, so let's talk about what all of this actually means. Because I know this story is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of names, a lot of history. But if we boil it all down, there are really three big questions we need to answer. Number one, what did the FBI actually find in that Trump Tower condo? Number two, what's the deal with Ivanka's international business projects? And number three, could anyone in the Trump family actually face criminal charges over any of this? So let's start with the raid, because that's the thing that's making headlines right now. The FBI shows up at Trump Tower in Sunny Isles. They raid a condo owned by two Russian businessmen, and everyone's asking, what were they looking for? Well, here's what we know. The condo is owned by Oleg Patulia and Agunda Makeva, and they're connected to a shell company called MIC USA LLC. Now, shell companies aren't always illegal, but they're often used to hide who really owns something, or to move money around in ways that are hard to trace. And in this case, there were already lawsuits and allegations of suspicious financial activity tied to this company. So the FBI likely had a warrant, which means they had to show a judge that there was probable cause to believe a crime had been committed. And that means they probably have evidence, documents, financial records, something that made them think, yeah, we need to search this place. Now, we don't know what they found yet, but here's what they're probably looking for. Evidence of money laundering. Evidence that this condo was purchased with dirty money. Evidence that it was being used to hide assets. Or, and this is the big one, evidence that connects this condo to other Trump properties and other sketchy financial dealings. Because here's the thing, if the FBI can prove that Trump properties have been used to launder money, that's a huge deal. That's not just a problem for the people who bought the condos. That's a problem for the Trump organization, because at some point you have to ask, did they know? And if they didn't know, should they have known? Now, Trump's defenders will say he can't control who buys his condos, and that's technically true. But here's the problem. When your name is on the building, when you're making money off of it, when you're promoting it, you have a responsibility to make sure your brand isn't being used for illegal activity. And if you're not doing that, well, that's on you. And let's be honest here. The Trump organization has been around for decades. They've done deals all over the world. They know how real estate works. They know how international buyers work. And they absolutely know or should know when something looks fishy. So when Russians start buying up condos through shell companies, when there are lawsuits and allegations of financial misconduct, when journalists start writing stories about money laundering, you can't just say, oh, we had no idea, because at that point, you either knew or you chose not to look. So that's question number one. What did the FBI find? And we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I'll tell you this, the FBI doesn't waste time. If they raided that condo, they found something, or they're pretty damn sure they're going to find something. Now, let's talk about Ivanka, because this is where things get really interesting. Ivanka's international deals, especially the Vancouver project, have been under scrutiny for years. And the big question is, did these deals help foreign actors gain access to the Trump family? Did they facilitate money laundering? And did Ivanka know what was going on? Here's what we know. Ivanka was heavily involved in the Vancouver project. She promoted it. She attended the grand opening. She was the face of it. And at the time, she was also working in the White House as a senior advisor to the president. So already, that's a problem, because you're not supposed to be mixing government work with private business. That's like ethics 101. But it gets worse, because reporting came out that raised questions about who was financing this project. Were there foreign investors involved? Were there people trying to use this deal to get close to the Trump family? And were any of these people connected to governments that might want to influence U.S. policy? Now, the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation into this. And counterintelligence is all about protecting national security. It's about making sure foreign governments aren't using business deals or personal relationships to manipulate American officials. And the fact that they opened an investigation into Ivanka's deals, that tells you they thought there was something worth looking into. But here's the thing. That investigation never resulted in any charges. It just kind of went quiet. And for a while, people forgot about it. But now, with this raid happening in Florida, with renewed focus on Trump properties and Russian connections, all of those old questions are coming back. And people are asking, did Ivanka's deals create a national security risk? Did they give foreign actors a way to get close to the Trump family? And did anyone in the Trump organization do anything illegal? Now, we don't have proof of anything illegal, at least not yet. But the fact that the FBI is still looking into this stuff, that's significant, because the FBI doesn't waste time on cases that have no merit. If they're investigating, there's a reason. And here's what makes this even more problematic. Ivanka wasn't just some random businesswoman when these deals were happening. She was a senior advisor to the president. She had security clearance. She sat in on meetings with world leaders. And the whole time her family business was doing deals with foreign entities. Can you imagine? Like, seriously, imagine if any other government official, any senator, any cabinet member, anyone was doing international business deals while serving in the White House. There would be outrage. There would be investigations. There would be resignations. But with the Trump family, it's just another Tuesday. So that brings us to the third question. Could anyone in the Trump family actually face criminal charges? And here's the honest answer. We don't know. It depends on what the FBI finds. It depends on whether they can prove that anyone knowingly broke the law. And it depends on whether prosecutors think they have enough evidence to bring charges. But here's what we do know. If the FBI can prove that Trump properties were used to launder money, and that someone in the Trump organization knew about it, that's a crime. If they can prove that Ivanka's deals violated ethics rules or facilitated illegal activity, that's a problem. And if they can tie any of this back to Trump himself, well, that's a whole nother level. Now, Trump supporters will say this is all a witch hunt. They'll say the FBI is biased. They'll say there's no evidence. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe this will all come to nothing. But here's the thing. Even if no one gets charged, even if the FBI finds nothing, the questions are still there. The connections are still there. And the fact that Trump properties keep showing up in stories about Russian money and shady deals, that's not going away. And here's why this matters. Because Trump is the president right now, in his second term, and his family is still tied to a global business empire. And that creates conflicts of interest. It creates ethical problems. And it creates situations like this, where the FBI is raiding properties with Trump's name on them. So what happens next? Well, the FBI will continue their investigation. They'll look at the evidence they found in that condo. They'll dig into Ivanka's deals. And if they find enough, they might bring charges, or they might not. But either way, this story isn't going away because the internet is on fire right now. People are talking about this everywhere. Hashtags are trending. News outlets are covering it nonstop. And everyone, from Trump's biggest supporters to his harshest critics, has an opinion. And here's what's really interesting. Even some Trump supporters are starting to ask questions because at some point, even if you love the guy, even if you think he's being treated unfairly, you have to admit that the pattern is concerning. Trump properties keep attracting sketchy buyers. Ivanka's deals keep raising ethical questions. And the FBI keeps investigating. That's not fake news. That's not a conspiracy. That's reality. And here's the kicker. This is all happening while Trump is president, which means it's not just a legal problem. It's a political problem. Because if the Trump family ends up facing criminal charges, that's a distraction. That's a scandal. And that's something that could impact Trump's ability to govern. Now, will it actually impact his ability to govern? Probably not. Because Trump has survived scandals before. He's been through investigations. He's been impeached twice. And he's still here. So a raid on a condo in Florida, that's probably not going to take him down. But it adds to the pile. It adds to the list of questions. And it adds to the narrative that the Trump family plays by different rules. So yeah, this is a big deal. And it's not over. Not by a long shot. Because here's what we're watching for. We're watching to see if the FBI brings charges against anyone connected to that condo. We're watching to see if Ivanka gets pulled into any legal proceedings. And we're watching to see if Trump himself has to answer questions about what he knew and when he knew it. And in the meantime, the internet will keep talking, the media will keep digging, and the Trump family will keep saying this is all unfair. But you know what? Fair or not, the questions aren't going away. The evidence is piling up, and the American people deserve answers. So stay tuned, because this story is just getting started. And trust me, it's going to get a whole lot more interesting before it's over.